The record. Here we go. So we'll get started. This is probably we have 22-ish people here now. I think two of those are me though. So 20 of us. May not be a crowded one today with the field trip. But nonetheless, we'll get started. We're going to take a look, I said, at the August 2024. For most people, I'm assuming this one should be done. I've been kind of polling you guys like, hey, is everyone good with this? You had time to work on it last week. You had time to work on it Monday. We got up to like question 29 last week if you were here. And we're going to go over it a little bit differently, not just me sitting there and like making an answer key or looking at my handwriting, my answer key. We're going to go through relatively quickly too. We're going to go through the model responses. I usually show you guys these. This isn't like a secret. These are available online, just like anything else, the answer key to all these regions. The model responses are really nice, and why I like to look at them and why I like to show them to you guys, it gives you an idea of how the point breakdown works. Sometimes we are a little bit surprised with this, right? We go like, oh, wow, that got a 3 out of 4, or oh, wow, they took off for that, or they didn't take off for that. So sometimes it is a little interesting to see how things are scored. All right. Let's get going. So I think we left off on, where were we? All right. Some classes went over this one. I'm not sure if everyone did. Ooh, that person wrote it really weird. This was question 30. They didn't write plus or minus. Interesting. This was question 29, sorry. The quad formula one, it said exact roots. This was -3 plus or minus rad 33 over 2. We talked about the idea of anytime it says exact, you're supposed to leave it as a radical, it gets a 2 out of 2. I don't think anyone in here would write it like that. Someone actually asked this question too, I believe. But yeah, you could just put plus or minus. Okay, what would some other variations look like here? If you gave the decimal, you'd get a 1 out of 2. If you did some weird technique and got the same answer, you'd get a 1 out of 2 because they specifically told you quad formula. Okay, let's look at this. This is another correct one. This person just wrote it weird, but that's still correct. They split up like the divide by 2. Still technically correct. Okay, what did this person get? What are we thinking this gets at? A 1, yeah. You could argue, and some of you guys tried to do this on the quad test, like, oh man, I had the answer there. Yeah, but this person circled what they meant to give. You can't just be like, hey, I had it somewhere else on the page. You were indicating that the answer was a decimal. Don't even do that, as a matter of fact. Don't even do it to like check or something, because someone might see that and get confused. This got a 1 out of 2, huh? What's going on here? This person's doing what? What does this look like? Interesting. This must be correct. What technique does it look like it's going to? What technique? CTS. This is CTS. You can see he's adding the number over, doing the magic number thing. Very strange to do it for this example. I wouldn't want to do CTS even if they told me, I don't know why you would go out of your way to do it here. You have decimals. So that is accurate. Why does it look so different? It's because it's in decimals. Instead of like rad 33, he's got rad 8.25. This works out to the exact same answer. It does get a 1 out of 2 because you didn't use quad formula. And let's quickly look at a 0. Yeah. So this person made it a decimal. Their mistake, this is kind of unfortunate because they just forgot a plus minus in front of or between the 3 and the rad 33. And then they also made it like an incorrect decimal. So way too many mistakes to give that a 1. Okay, the next one, factoring completely. We said anytime a question says factor completely, that's a red flag, that's a hint. You should be factoring more than once, okay? You start here, you only have one move to start. You start with a GCF. Hey, I noticed 5 and 80. Okay, there's something cooking there. And x cubed and x. All right, I could pull out an x. And now all of a sudden that opens the door. Look at what's remaining. This person's kind of like showing the perfect squares. You don't need to do that. Look at what's remaining and say to yourself, all right, it's a binomial, so it has to be dots. Some product isn't even on my radar right now. Um, we double bubble x minus 4, x plus 4. Always say to yourself with factoring completely, is there something else I could do? Is there another move? There's no more moves here. That's it. This is another 2 point questions are pretty easy. Not like skill level wise, but like grading. It's like, all right, if you do something partially correct, incorrect, you're getting a 1 out of 2. You have to obviously get it fully correct to get a 2, and you kind of have to be off the deep end to get a 0 out of 2. These are pretty straightforward. It's the other ones that get a little confusing, or like, ambiguous would be a better word. Ooh, ooh. Okay, this is a good one. Take a look at this. If you paid close attention the other day, I actually talked about this. This is very common. I had a few students do this last year. What do you think this would get out of 2? What would this get? We will actually do some questions too if you're like, are we just going to look at people's work? Yeah, this would get a 1. Why is this? Kristen says 0. Damn. Why would this get a 1? He's got the correct answer. This is a 1. I talked about this in class on Tuesday. He did the work right. It's factored right, but what is he doing? Yeah, I don't know why we keep saying he or she is like treating it like it's a quadratic. He's like setting it equal to 0. He's doing his, zero product property, we call that. He has his answers down below. Did this question ask for that? Did this question say solve this or find the roots or figure out where it equals 0, solve any synonym for that? No. So if you do something that's just random and they didn't ask for it, they can't, you didn't understand the question. Let's see how they explain it. The student factored completely but solved it as an equation. So like, hey, you had a misconception with what you were asked to do. It sounds very like generic and vague, but follow the directions. Hey, factor this. That's it. Right? They would have had to say solve, determine the roots, algebraically determine something like that you're solving. They just say factor. That's like saying, hey, write it in a different way. Okay, this gets a 1. Ooh, this is generous. Okay, so pulling out a GCF, dots, and then oh, I see. Well, can anyone quickly tell us what the mistake is here? This did get a 1. I guess I agree with that. The X, yeah, they're kind of treating it like a double dots, we call it. Yeah, double dots, I guess. But that doesn't work because it doesn't say x squared minus 4. It just says x minus 4. You can't do a second round of dots. Okay, this gets a 0. Huh. Yeah, I guess. I mean, technically that's correct. I guess they're counting it as like, hey, you didn't even do GCF correctly. You just did CF. I think if you just, they didn't even have it in the model responses, but if you just pulled out a 5x, they'd probably give you a 1. Okay, the next one, pretty straightforward. I'm going to kind of fly through this one. There's no real, I keep referencing this as like, this is a layup, right? This is a free 4 points. You have your table, it's just a matter of typing it in. I did hand back the stat test to 2 of the classes. I think if you're in 721, you didn't get it back. We finally had our makeups earlier this week, so you will get it back. Some people lost points. It was just a matter of like typing something in wrong, reading it off their calculator wrong. I don't think there's any skill issues with this question. No pun intended. There's no like, hey, I have no idea how to do this. It's just a little simple error. Oh, I read it as 22 instead of 72. I rounded wrong. I forgot an X. We were pretty good with remembering the Y equals. That's a common mistake. I don't think anyone really did that. Maybe 1 or 2 people. Okay, Lin Reg, your R value, 0.99, strong and positive. Now, sometimes they'll say in the context of the situation. I always like to throw that out there just in case, saying something like average temperature, strong and positive between temperature and ice cream sales, something like that. Make sure you're saying strong because it's close to 1 and positive because it's a positive number. You don't need to say R equals, no. That's like not I mean, if you do, it's not wrong or anything, but you don't technically need to. It's not like AOS or something where it's like, oh, it's mandatory to say this. You don't need to. R just stands for correlation. It's not an equation. Okay. I would say these are kind of treated like 2-1-1. So again, I'm going to kind of skip through these. This person lost a point. What did they write? What does that say? As the temperature goes up, the amount of ice cream goes up. Positive. Okay, yeah, they didn't say if it's strong or weak. Okay, made a rounding error, -1. So pretty self-explanatory. I don't think anyone should have. Whoa, what's going on here? I don't think we should have an issue with like getting zeros or ones on this. Everyone should get a 4. Okay, this was our system of inequalities, question 32. Okay, I know it's a little hard to see. Again, I'll be posting my answer key. So I like to do that because some of these aren't great. Even if you look up the answers, it doesn't really have like pictures of the written ones. It might just describe it, or it might just say like graphed correctly. And you're like, what is graphed correctly? So I'll be posting a PDF of my answer key, hopefully soon, maybe even by tonight it will be up. So you can take a better look. I know this copy isn't great. This is the Regents copy. So things to keep note of here. I always like to, let's see if they did it. No. I always like to, next to the inequalities, put my little work, put like M equals, B equals, type a line, where to shade. You do need to label here. They do the little S. I think the one on your mock Regents didn't say S, and most people did anyway. That's fine. Okay. Ooh. The person wrote, is 2, a solution? So 2, just to be clear, is where they intersect, but one of the lines is dotted. And they wrote no because it's on a dotted line. It's more of an explanation to be honest, but they are giving that full credit. Justify usually more math-based evidence, like plugging it in and showing that it doesn't work. But there's a little bit of an overlap, so you can use words there. Okay. I like this. Yeah. Like this is what I think of when I think of justify. And a lot of you guys do this, right? Like, hey, it works here, it doesn't work. So no, you don't even have to say any words besides NO. Okay. Notice in these, they are labeling, nice dotted line, arrows on the end. They don't go crazy with shadings. No one's looking at your shadings with like a magnifying glass. Okay. Why did this person lose a point? Says it right in the description. Did not label. Everything's perfect. This is a really annoying question, right? You did so much nice work, you forgot to label, you get a 75%. You get a 3 out of 4. They wrote a very like wordy explanation, which again, you don't need to do. Okay, I'm assuming the lines look weird here, so I'm assuming this person made a graphing mistake. Sorry. Wow. So they graphed one line correctly. They made a mistake with one of them. They still got a 3 out of 4 because everything else is perfect. The other line is good. Their explanation's good. It's just one graphing error. Oh, sorry. I gotta catch up with the chat here. Do you have to write the big S? If it says, so like this one does, they want to make sure that you understand where the solution set is. You can just say strong and positive, going back to the correlation. But I always like to throw the context in there. They used to put that all the time. They haven't recently. What if it just says justify, but you only explain? Yeah, like that person got full credit for that. Where was that? That was the first one. They gave this full credit. That's what I looked at it. I did like a double take. I was like, well, like to me, I wouldn't like that, but I guess they're explaining it. Justify and explain, there is an overlap. They're not like totally separate worlds. Explain is usually more written and justify is usually more math, but you can like, overlap a little bit. I would say usually if you do something like this, like you still have some work to back it up. Doesn't justify mean show work. Yeah. But again, I know we say that all the time and I yell at you guys, but then they should have a example like this where justify is someone gives a very brief sentence and they count that as correct. Like this to me is what justify is. This is like textbook justifying. Hey, I justified that I didn't just put NO and write no because I showed that, it doesn't work. So I guess you could think of justify as including both explaining and justifying, whereas explaining is just explaining, if that makes sense. There's always some funny ones with the 4 pointers, like this gets a 1. Why does this get a 1? The student labeled an appropriate solution set. So none of the lines are graphed correctly, but they shaded 2 lines randomly and put an S somewhere, and you get a point. Hey, I don't think, again, any one of us in the 3 classes should be living on the 0 and 1 side of a 4-point question. I think we all know how to do this. Maybe we're a little rusty during the mock, but even so, like, we're not gonna be this kid, which I don't even know what's going on here. Okay, we're getting there. Because I still wanna actually look at the January. For 33, this question was on one of your tests, so we'll go through this relatively quickly. You may have had deja vu doing this question. The answer was 2 comma 144. We have a weird thing where we don't like to write coordinates, some of us. So coordinates, make sure you put parentheses around it. And then you do have to explain, so words here, what it means in context. Anytime we see context, what does that mean? Talk about the nouns in the problem. So what does 2 mean? What does 144 mean? This coordinate means that the object reaches highest point, parentheses 144 feet, in the air at 2 seconds. Perfect explanation. Right? After 2 seconds, it reaches its max height. You want to throw all those keywords in there. What does 2 mean? What does 144 mean? And you also want to highlight that the vertex is that max, is that peak. Okay, and then how long does it take to hit the ground? Justify your answer. Well, again, they're not really justifying here. The object takes 5 seconds to hit the ground because the x-intercept is 5, 0. Like, if someone did this on one of if someone did this on the test, like I gave this a 3 out of 4. This is not correct, but okay. This person didn't really show what they got that from. They're just saying 5-0, but again, that doesn't show where you got it from. You got to show something. I would not give that full credit. Even this is not great. These are not great model examples, but okay. A lot of you guys, when we gave this question, you showed something. Some people like copied on their calculator table. That's a lot better than what I'm seeing here in the model responses. It would take 5 seconds, and they just have like a rough sketch of a random parabola. Okay. Yeah, like this. Okay, this I could live with. This person has really neat handwriting too. This is justifying, right? They're actually solving it. Didn't say algebraic, so you don't have to go crazy, right? This person did it like to the extreme. You could have, done something differently, but this is like to me, the top example. The other ones are not great. If we plug the y and x in for the second question, would that be valid? Yeah. That's a good way of putting it, Selena. She's saying like plug a 5 in and show that it works out to 0. That's justifying it. You don't actually have to solve it. You could just be like, hey, 5 works here. 5 creates a 0. Yeah. See, like this gets a 3 because he didn't show any work, but that first kid didn't really do anything either. That's where I'm not really loving that very first example. He literally just wrote 5. So like you got to do something, but okay. I'm flying here. Solving a system algebraically. I think this one might have been on your test too. So the answers for this one's easy to check if you have your books in front of you. -4, -1, and 211. Okay, solving algebraically means set them equal to each other, get them set equal to 0. We said when we did problems like this in class, use context clues, right? It doesn't say anything about rounding. It doesn't say anything about radicals. So what does that tell you? This is going to work out nicely. So some product here should suffice, and it does. You don't need to whip out quad formula to solve this. You can, but that's a little overkill. So x plus 4, x minus 2, you get x equals -4 and x equals +2. And then you're only missing your y values. Remember with your y values, they showed it down here. You go back to your originals and you usually the linear and you plug in that x value to get the y value that goes with it. So -4 and 2 comma 11. You can write your answer as coordinates, but again, make sure that you put parentheses around them. Can you set each of them equal to 0? You start by setting them equal to each other, and then you get that equation equal to 0. So you're technically starting with substitution because it is a system. So you set them equal to each other because they're both equal to y. You move everything over to one side. Usually you bring the linear over to the quadratic side. And then you're using some quadratic strategy. Here, sum product factoring works. Set them equal to each other, equal to 0, and then solve. This is the best way of putting it. Okay, I'm assuming the 3 is like some sort of, what's a 3 look like here? Okay, you made like a little error. That happens sometimes, like you plug it in, you do a calculation mistake. So this person wrote 415 instead of 411. Copied something down wrong. Yeah. Okay. These are hard. How do you get a 2 on this? I wonder. Wow, this gets a 2? Huh. I'm even surprised, like looking through these. This gets a 2 out of 4. You didn't even say what the answers were. You just factored it and you get half credit? Okay. Oh, yeah, the one before this. Yeah, that was fine. This gets a 2. What if you just put the answers and nothing else? What if you just put the answers? Which, that gets a 1, a 1. You have really good eyesight. Your friends is in front of you. You pull it up on your calculator. You get a 1. I don't think anyone here should do that, but hey, you get a 1. All right, we're up to the very last one, right? The system. The last question on your, we talked about this last week, right? The last question is going to be a system. 2 weeks ago, right? We did it together. That I forget what it was. It's usually like something. I was going to say movie related because this one is something like money related, right? Oh, you bought popcorn and soda. Find the price of each one. The middle question is like, is this person correct? You know it's going to be wrong, and then it says algebraically solve it. Okay, very very routine. That's the, if I had to bet money on it, this is what we're going to see. Not this exact question, not these exact numbers, but something like this. This one's pretty easy because it's what we call a single elimination, meaning you only have to multiply one of the equations by something. For checking if someone's correct, if you're not sure how to handle that, speaking of justify again, plug it in, show that it doesn't work. I think last week or 2 weeks ago, I suggested like it usually, or at least sometimes, works for the top one. So kind of be intuitive and just skip to the bottom equation. That seems to work again here because it works for the top. And some people would just go, yeah, it works. But when you check the bottom one, then it doesn't work. So just skip to the bottom one, maybe, is a good tip. And then you could just say, so you can notice some people feel obligated to like explain it a little bit. She's incorrect because, can't really see what that says. The prices would have been lower. Basically, like it doesn't work, right? It doesn't equal 47.50. It equals 43.50. She said that really weird, but and then the prices should have been 6.50 and 8.50. 6-point question. These are kind of treated like 2-2-2. I say kind of when I break it down because it's not like it's perfectly set up that way, but kind of like 2-2-2. So if you have the system set up correctly, 2 points right there. This, you can mess up this part and still get, a 5 or something like that. You have to show that it doesn't work, kind of give some sort of explanation or justification. And then the solving part is obviously worth 2 as well. So this is a 6-point question. This is obviously, a heavy hitter on the Regents. This is worth 3 multiple choice. So you want to make sure that you're doing it correctly. Questions with the August. I'll quickly scroll through a few. I do want to get started on the January together for the remaining second half of this. Let's maybe look at a 5. Where's a 5? Okay, this person got a 5. They set it up. They said no. They didn't even give an explanation. You don't have to explain it. But they didn't find R. That happens sometimes. This is kind of common. You solve for one variable and you just stop. but he or she forgot to plug in to figure out R. So you do only lose one there. Pretty generous. Huh? Yeah, that's what I mean. 2, 2, 2. This person didn't even try to algebraically solve it. Hey, you still get 4 out of 6. Again, I'm not showing you these to be like, hey guys, do this and lose 2 points, but hopefully this puts you at ease a little bit. Like, okay, the scoring's pretty fair. If anything, your takeaway from the first 30 minutes of this, even my reactions to some of these have been like, oh wow, like they're very kind of generous with how they consider and score things. Questions? Tight handwriting. I don't know what that means. Negative aura. Okay. Let's see a 1. It's hard to get a 1 on a 6-point question. This got a 1. Huh. The student only justified in the first equation. Wow. Left everything else blank. 1 out of 6. Again, I will be posting my answer key for the August because everyone was in a slightly different spot with that. You may have missed things, you were absent, you're at service leak. So check the answer key that will be posted on Google Classroom. It's like my handwriting on Notability. If you want to go over something a little bit more in detail, or otherwise, you could watch last week's video. You can watch this one because it picked right up with question 29 or 30, whatever it was, to fully recap the August 2024. And we'll transition right into perfect timing. I wanted to try to at least get half of it. The January 25. This should be in your green book. We didn't start this. I didn't tell anyone to. Maybe you did in your own free time with your own free will. But we'll look at the January 25 together. I'm still deciding where, because I feel like we start with the multiple choice and that ends up like hogging a lot of our time. Not saying that multiple choice isn't important, but I almost want to focus on some of the written ones, kind of flip it backwards. So maybe we'll do that and we'll save the multiple choice. Let's do a quick scan of the multiple choice. Ooh, okay. Factoring, but a little twist on it there. Polynomial questions. Hopefully you're already noticing this is maybe your third or fourth Regents, fifth maybe that you're looking at. Start to like all seem like the same type of questions, right? Frequency table, exponent rules. You start to see the same types of things over and over again. This question you guys should recognize. This was on your stat test. Okay, cross-canceling question, weird unit things. This question was on your stat test. Yeah, you start to notice this one's kind of weird looking. We've never seen a number line. Haven't seen that. All right, so I wanted to skip to not even the part twos. I want to skip to the. We'll do one part two. Yeah, we have some time. Okay, look at question 29. I don't have a green book on me, so I don't know what page that's on in yours. If someone could type it in the chat, look at question 29, and take a minute to try it. This is a 2-point question. 58. Thank you, Ro. Page 58. It says if f of x equals negative 3x minus 5 all over 2, algebraically, so we got to show something. I can't just write 7 and circle it. Algebraically determine the value of x when f of x equals negative 22. Take a minute to try that one out. Maybe we'll do like one part 2, a few part 3s, and then we'll look at the system. Without even looking, I'm going to assume the last question was the system. I have not looked at this. I've looked at it before, but I don't remember it offhand. You're trying question 29 in January 2025, if you're awake right now. Emily, are you awake? Is Emily even here? Ooh. It's interesting. Hmm. Yeah, I was just third. You did a mock. Um, why am I forgetting now? The mock was the June 2024, the August, and we had another one that I did some older ones like the first few virtual reviews. I kind of skipped around in, so let's say 4 maybe. Emily's in here. She's asleep somewhere, but she'll be awake at 1 a.m. later. So Adventureland was fun. No issues. Just rain. Yeah. And ironically, I've gone the past 2 years to Adventureland. Like it's around the same time of the year, like around May. Um, and it's been like I've gotten sunburn. I feel like the past few years, like been very, very hot. Like it was like the past 2 weeks. It's weird. Today was like freezing. All right. So question 29. Can anyone tell me what this question is asking? This is why I wanted to do it. I haven't seen something like this at least pretty recently. I don't know why my lights. Let's try this. No, it's too dark. Yeah, it's not telling you to plug in a -22 for x. Connor said it correctly. It's telling you to set the equation equal to -22. Basically, we're trying to find x here. Okay. If it said this, if they phrased it this way, well, they'd have to change something up there. That would be plug into 22. So this one is actually asking us to figure out, hey, what could you plug in for x to make the answer work out to -22? So what's the input? Hey, here's the output. This is function notation, I'd call this topic. What's the input that creates that? And you don't just guess, you could solve this. This is kind of like a two-step equation or multi-step equation. So we're going to start by multiplying by 2. Get that. We're going to move the 5 over. Okay, and now we divide by -3. -39 divided by -3, we get positive 13. Okay, we showed our work. We algebraically determined what it worked out to. Question I just haven't seen before. That's why it caught my eye. I was going to skip the part 2s, but 14 to 1? Hmm? Uh, oh, okay. The answer is 14 minus 1. Very clever. Okay. So like I said, I'm focusing, if you just came, I saw a few people just popped in. We're looking at the January. In the beginning of the video, we looked at we finished going over the August. So an answer key will be uploaded for that. We looked at the model responses to get an idea of how things were scored. And we just started the January. We're going to start with like the written questions because usually a lot of time is eaten up by the multiple choice. So maybe I wanted to flip this backwards a little bit. We'll look at some of the heavy hitters. In this one. So let's do a part 3. Ooh, okay, good one. This one is a little different. I was still correct. Part 4 is a system, but it doesn't follow our traditional pattern. Doesn't follow my pattern. My pattern's broken for once. Okay. Question 31 is what we did these in class. We did a lesson on this. You had a test on this. So if you saw this, you'd be like, all right, I know what to do. We call this a coin system. Alex had $1.70 in nickels and dimes on his desk. There were 25 coins in all. Write a system using N and D, and then algebraically solve it. So we'll start this one together. Can anyone tell me what would your 2 equations be here? The last question is not usually a graph. That's why, yeah, this one, the last question on this Regents does have a graph involved. The last question is usually that one where it's like kind of like this, like write a system, is Joe correct, blah, 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 solve it. They kind of put that here, and then the last one is still a system, but it's a graphing system. What would your two equations be, or does anyone want to give me one equation? Give me one equation that works for this situation. You have $1.70. They got to restrict it down to 2 coins because otherwise you have like 7 variables depending on how many coins you recognize. Good. N plus D equals 25. What that equation tells me is, hey, if I take my nickels, I take my dimes, I add them together, it's 25 total coins. Now your second equation is going to be your money equation. So for this, we want to incorporate the value of each coin. Excuse me. Hey, each nickel is 5 cents, 0.05 N, plus each dime is 10 cents, put 0.1 or 0.10 D equals $1.70. Again, this question is incorporating coefficients to act as the price of each value. So, hey, if I have 3 nickels, that's 15 cents. I think it makes a lot more sense when you think of it that way. No pun intended. And that's our system. Now, obviously, what's the next part here? We're going to have to solve this. Good, good, good. Now, you don't need to do this, but if you remember, does anyone remember what could we do to this to make this a little bit more convenient, nice, less scary? Yeah, you could do this move. Technically, you're multiplying the entire bottom equation by 100. Why am I even saying that? What that does is gets rid of the decimals, right? Did I actually do anything? Not really, but some people are just intimidated by them. Some people just deal with the decimals and like, I don't care, I have a calculator. But if that's scaring you away, you can do this. Just make sure that you don't make a mistake with that. So every single value gets multiplied by 100, or each decimal is moved 2 jumps to the right. So I'm going to do that. I think majority of people in here do that, but some people don't. You don't need to. I'm going to rewrite it down here, or just copy it. And good little system practice here. How do we want to solve this? Rule, I think you might have the total value of the coins. When you state it that way, you'd want to say how many you have. You could do substitution. Yep. So this one's kind of in the middle, right? You could do substitution. You could say, hey, I'm going to get N by itself here. I'm going to get D by itself here. I'm going to plug it in. You could also do, I'm just going to do elimination. You could take the bottom equation and multiply it by something. So you can multiply it by -5, for example. You have a lot of options here. And now you'd stack that top equation with the one we just created. You'd add them together. The ends would cancel out. You'd get 5D, and you'd get, what is that, 45? So you're going to get D equals 9. And hey, if you had a total of 25 coins to begin with, and 9 of them were dimes, you'd have 16 nickels. You do something like that. D equals N equals. You could say it in a sentence. All good. Okay, I did elimination. You could have also multiplied by -10. You could have done this if you're a substitution person. This would be one variety. You replace N with 25 minus D. You have like 3 or 4 valid ways that are all about the same amount of work. Good coin system here for number 31. You got -2. Take a look and see, did you do elimination? You probably, if I had to assume, you probably made a mistake with your constant on the right, either forgetting to multiply it or leaving it the same. You could have -2 as a value, maybe if you owe someone 2 nickels. If you owe someone money, technically you have a negative value. 'Cause, 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 ' Maybe that means you stole 2 watches or something. Um, Questions with 31. All right. I'm gonna skip this one. I think we did this. Did I put this on your review sheet or test? Was this on your test? Maybe. So I'm gonna skip that one. We all know how to do that. Should we do? I'm gonna pick 34. So 33 was a quad formula. Let's try 34 on page. Someone type it in the chat. Page. I'm gonna guess 61. Oh, 61. On page 61 in your green book. Thank you. I swear to God, I guessed. I swear to God. I'm recording, so I could check the recording, see if my eyes made contact. I didn't really guess because the last 2 questions ago was page 58, so I just I had an educated guess. Thanks, Elijah. My eyes didn't make contact with the chat. So try 34. We'll get it started at least. We'll do it together. I'm not going to sit for 10 minutes and watch you guys do it. Get it set up. We'll start doing it. It gives us a quad linear system. It seems like this is a common part 3 they're throwing out there. It says algebraically. I went like this. I was like, I'm gonna guess page 61, and then my eyes. Watch my eyes. So my eyes were up here, and then the chat's down here. This is me looking at the chat right now. The chat's in the bottom right of my screen. Dylan is my biggest hater out of nowhere here. Dylan parks at Rank and Ride. What's Moon Chaser? I like the bumper cars. Oh, that one? Oh God, I couldn't do that. I like rides, but not those type of rides. So what would you do here? I would set them equal to each other first. They're both equal to y, so set them equal to each other. Okay, now you're going to move everything over to the left. And you get this. So any quadratic, you want to get it set equal to 0. We said there's always context clues in terms of, hey, this question doesn't say anything about rounding, doesn't say exact values, doesn't say radicals. So what does that tell me as a hint? Oh, yeah, it's going to work out nicely. It's going to work out nicely, right? Otherwise, they'd have to say something about, hey, nearest 10, radicals, something like that. And now your sum product chart would look like this. What has a sum of -9 and a product of -18? Little factoring review here. If you have a negative sum and a positive product, that tells you 2 negatives. And now think about 18. 18 and 1? No. 9 and 2? No. What is it? 6 and 3. Okay? Factoring can be annoying, but if you use little tricks like that, it becomes a lot easier. And now our two answers are going to be 6 and 3. And I am missing something. What am I missing? I'm missing something. I'm missing the y values. Yeah, this is a system. People would do this. What would that get if you did that? I would say a 3. They gave a 2 if you just factored it. So I'm just going to say it's a 3. So yeah, you are missing the y values. You just have to plug in and choose the linear one. It's a lot easier to work with. So if you do 2 times 6 minus 6, what is that? 12 minus 6, you get 6. And 2 times 3 is 6 minus 6, you get 0. Want to write a little bit neater? 6, 6, and 3, 0. 6, 6, and 3, 0. A little ampersand between it. You don't have to write in coordinates. Mine was just cut off, so I rewrote it. Okay, 4 to 4. Pretty easy written question so far, but question 35 takes a little curveball here. Who's bullying Elijah? Because he went on a ride with his girlfriend? Why are we bullying Elijah? Ampersand is the end symbol. Did he follow the script? Is crazy. Oh, what? Okay, last question. Let's look at 35. 35, last one. We didn't do like most of this test, but we did like the hardest questions. So when we do finish going over it, we could end with the multiple choice and the part twos. Nathan. So we have a system again, but like I said, a little twist to it. Little twist. Okay. So it says Anna plans to spend $30 on balloons and party hats. Balloons are $2 each, party hats are $1.50 each. The number of party hats Anna needs is twice as many as the number of balloons. If X represents balloons and Y represents party hats, write a system for this situation. Okay, not a bad start. So X is balloons here. So 2X plus Y is party hats. Party hats are $1.50. She's going to spend $30. So that's one of my equations. And then it says that last sentence is another equation. The number of hats is, so hats was Y. The number of hats is twice as many as the number of balloons. That's an easy equation. Y equals 2X. So not a bad start here, but gets a little weird. So like I said, on the last probably 10 plus Regents, it's been the same classic that we've always seen. This one has a graphing aspect. What color is it, carrot? Maddie, what happened to your phone? You lost it? Someone lost their phone on the 8th grade trip, I heard. Okay, now it says graph your system. Ooh, graph. I'm going to copy this and slide it down. Yours is probably on a second page. I heard someone say that or saw someone say that. It's on page 63. It's on 63? Oh, 62, I was wrong. Okay. So y equals 2x and 2, I'm going to slide it down here. So we haven't done one of these in a while, and it is a little unusual for this to pop up. But if you remember when you're applying regardless what type of function it is, in this case, we have two linear functions, right? To a graph like this, slope may not necessarily be easily used or easily applied, I should say. So what you can do is think about how many points you need to make a line, which is always just two. So as long as you can come up with two values, lay your ruler down. Obviously, we may not have those right now. Lay your ruler down and trace a line. That's all you need. So what I would recommend here, because this is what happens with graphing questions, right? You get to the point where you're like, hey, what do I do here? I'm not sure. How do I translate this on paper? Get them in Y form. So the bottom one's good to go. We can knock that out right now. Y equals 2x. That's pretty easy to do as well, right? So it passes through 0, 0. And when x is 20, y would be, well, that's going to be cut off. That would be 40. 10, 20 it passes through, right? When x is 10, y is 20. So this one's going to be off the page pretty quickly. Okay, that's y equals 2x. How did I get that graph? I plugged in a 0, I got a 0. I plugged in a 10, I got a 20. And this could be off your graphing calculator. Now for this top equation, what do we need to do? To be able to graph it, what do we need to do? Get it in y equals. Is he guessing? Yeah, get it in y equals. So I'm going to move the 250x, why can't I talk? I'm going to move the 2x over. It's been a long day. I'm going to divide everything by 1.5. And can someone tell me what, you could use your calculator here to clean this up a little bit. What does this simplify to? How can I write this like kind of neater? I don't want to have like decimals and crazy numbers. So what I would do is actually type in the quotients there to clean it up. And again, we may be a little scared with some of the values we have, but we just need two values. As long as you have 2 points per line, that should put you at ease a little bit. Like, okay, it's not so bad. Is a negative 4/3 x plus 20? Good, Kristen. Yeah, thank you. You don't need to, like, how did I get that? Negative 2 divided by 1.5. Your calculator is probably going to say negative 1.323. You could hit math, enter, enter to make it a fraction. That's a little bit nicer with slope if you're going that route. Or now you could type this into your calculator, pull out 2 nice points, 2 points you could actually plot. One nice one right off the bat is going to be 20 on the y-axis. I know the y-intercept is 20. And we only need one more nice point. Can anyone, if someone has their calculator in front of them, can someone type in this function, y equals negative 4/3 x plus 20, if they haven't done so already? Can you give me another coordinate that works out nicely? I could do slope here because the scale is just going by ones. 316 works out nicely. So 316? Yeah, and that's just doing slope, down 4/3. Usually the scales are weird. Like if it goes by anything other than ones, these happen to be going by ones. But if it's like going by 2s, by 5s, by 10s, sometimes the y and x axis are different scales. Then all of a sudden, slope doesn't apply. Slope doesn't work. Oh man, I don't like, I'm looking at, and it hits at 15. Oh man, that's ugly. Hits at 15. Okay. And what do you think the follow-up is here? I'm going to label my other one before I forget. I want to double check something because I'm a little angry if not. So state the coordinates of the point of intersection. Mine's off a little bit, but what is that, 512? My graph around? 612? 612, sorry. 612 says coordinates, and then explain what each coordinate means in the context of the problem. So anytime we see context, we don't want to talk like a robot. We want to explain, hey, what does 6 actually mean here? What does 6 stand for? What does 12 stand for? You could say something like, in the context of the problem, um, it means that 6 balloons, referencing 6x is balloons, and 12 party hats, y, will be able to, reach whatever her requirements were. Hey, she'll have double, and it will add up to whatever the dollar amount was, 30. Okay, it is kind of hard to explain this in words because it's not just as simple as being like, oh, it means that's how much something costs. This one, it was not cost, it was how many of each item. So I guess you could say, to keep it as brief as possible, like these were the amount of balloons and the amount of party hats that accomplished whatever, what was the person's? Anna's goal, her price and her 2-to-1 relationship. Again, a little bit of a strange final question. I haven't seen something like this as a part 4, a 6-pointer. Again, I would kind of treat this as, well, this one's different because it has, so we had the system, we had the graph, we had the coordinates, and then explain. So I guess the bottom 2 questions are worth 1 each. The graph is 2, and the system is worth 2. Some things going back to the lines. Yeah, sorry. Going back to your graphs. Label. And notice I didn't put an arrow on this. How come I didn't put arrows here or here? Or here, I guess. How come in 3 spots I don't have arrows? Next game's on? Yeah, if you put an arrow here, you'd be saying, hey, she could have negative party hats. Doesn't make sense. So don't go crazy with arrows. Yes, you want arrows in some situations, but it would be wrong to. And I was looking through the models. They gave someone else. Yeah, their model responses are not great. So they have a 6 out of 6, and the person has this. They have an arrow in the top left, which is wrong because you're saying balloons could be negative. That's not right. Or maybe they just didn't notice that. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, that's the January 25 written questions, the part 3s and 4s mostly. We'll be using the multiple choice and part 2s at some point in the coming days. Back to class tomorrow. We're going to do a review lesson. Will be review lesson 4. Hopefully we get back in the swing of things a little bit. Obviously class has been a little broken up. And even we just have 2 days remaining this week, then it's Memorial Day, then it's field day next week. This is what I meant when I really said, like, time starts to fly by. It felt like we had over a month, and we did, but there's a lot of broken up days here. Okay, let me catch up in the chat. The Mets are winning. Yeah, it was 1-0 last time I saw. Is it still 1-0? It's still 1-0. Okay. What if we put arrows up but not down? So yeah, you can have an arrow here. I even did that. That's fine. You can't have negative balloons. Alrighty. So we'll wrap it up here. Let me stop the recording. My picture is really scary. I look like I'm telling like a campfire story. Stop recording.